So I'd like to introduce our two speakers now. We're going to have them present, and then following that, we will have a discussion period. Feel free to add anything into the chat you want, and we'll keep track of that during their presentations. So our two speakers today are Kevin Shimmin, who's been a union organizer with the USCW Canada for 20 years. Prior to his organizing activity, Kevin completed an MA in Work and Society with a focus on strategies to unionize migrant agricultural workers. During the late 1990s, he lived in Sri Lanka, where he worked with underground human rights organizations during the war there. Today, Kevin continues to be active in peace and human rights groups globally. Nohora Castañeda is a workers' rights advocate in her current role as National Representative for United Food and Commercial Workers Union Canada. As a national representative, Nohora assists workers in getting union representation, facilitates workshops, and actively participates in community engagement programs. As a labor activist, she is fully committed in advancing issues related to gender equity, food security, allyship, intersectionality, truth and reconciliation, and ending workplace discrimination. So without further ado, I pass over the workshop to Nohora and Kevin. Thank you, Kevin and Nohora, for joining us today.
Thank you very much, David. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. And good morning and good afternoon to all of you. Nohora and I are very excited to join you today, and thank you very much for the invitation. I think, as David mentioned, the film we just watched is a really good introduction about how the work of the National Farmers Union is more important, more critical than ever. And hopefully Nohora and I can give you a little bit of suggestions here and there to help you expand your membership. So we'll go ahead with the presentation. And as David mentioned, we'll have some discussion. We're looking forward to your discussion. So we're not going to try and take too much time talking, but we want to open up to lots of questions and answers and discussion from you at the end. So I think we'll go to the next slide, and I believe David has already given us excellent introduction. So we could go to the next slide, and Nohora will let us know about the agenda.
Good morning, everybody. Can you all hear me well? Okay, perfect. So yes, Kevin and I, we have put together this agenda for this workshop. We will start with a land acknowledgement. We believe that a land acknowledgement is a way of showing respect and honoring the indigenous people of the land on which we work and live today. Then we will give you a brief introduction of who we are. After that, we will talk about the role of organizing in advising the common good. Share some strategies to create stronger connections with our members, and talk about some of the challenges that you might face when approaching the membership. Some tips about how to overcome them. And finally, we will invite you to have an open conversation about what we have shared during the workshop today. So let's start. Next slide, Tim, please.
Thank you. And thank you. Today we situate, I'm just gonna change my screen here so I can read it properly. Today we situate our comments from Toronto, Ontario, the traditional territory of the Mississaugas of the Credits of the First Nations, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Huron-Wendat, and many other First Peoples. We recognize that participants are joining from diverse areas across Canada, so we acknowledge those nations as well. UFCW is commonly known as the Food Workers Union. As such, we recognize that Indigenous peoples are the first and the rightful landholders of Turtle Island and the first to embrace a sustainable relationship to the food system we contribute to and benefit from today. Today, we affirm our commitment that worker justice is synonymous with Indigenous justice.
Okay, so who we are. Next slide, 18, please. We are the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. UFCW is one of Canada's most experienced and respected unions, with a union history that goes back to the 1800s. We are a Canadian union supported by the strength of the UFCW International, one of North America's largest private sector unions with more than 1.3 million members. We proudly represent and help organize workers in every aspect of the food chain, as well as healthcare, security, non-food manufacturing, office and professional sectors, gig and cannabis workers, and in other key sectors of the economy. We have 50% of our membership working in food retail, with a 50% working in food processing plants, and 30% working in other industries. Next slide, please. 40% of all our membership is in Ontario. We are one of Canada's most youthful unions, with more than 40% of UFCW Canada members under the age of 30. And across the country, we have more than 140,000 women are members of UFCW Canada, which means that we have almost 52% of our membership representing the women's sector. Next slide, Tim, please.
So why organizing? The title of this workshop is Advancing the Common Good Through Democratic Action. And what I've always said as an organizer for a long time, as a young organizer and volunteer with different social movements, that participation in a union is likely one of the most democratic experiences of our lives. And I think is the same with the National Farmers Union, that there are so many opportunities for new members of the union to take direct action, to take action around all of the goals that you aspire to. So very simply put, a good definition of organizing is empowering individuals to take collective action to achieve common goals. And so we can see organizing taking place, you know, in so many different aspects of society since time immemorial. And I know for Nohora and I, in our organizing, our day-to-day interaction and relationship building with workers, what we often find is that people have already been organizing in very organic methods long before they've contacted us. And you might find the same as well, long before you actually speak with somebody who might be a new member of the Farmers Union, that they've been trying different strategies themselves to organize. So we'll go to the next slide.
Yes, Kevin is right. When we talk about organizing, you probably will see through this workshop that maybe that is not something new, but at the same time, it takes like a strategy to get to the membership. So what we think, the approach of organizing, the way we see it, is that we start by approaching the individual, and then from there, trying to link the issues that the individuals have with the overall goal of the union. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how it is to talk to the farmers. How would be an idea of talking by farmers? So we have first to identify who you are. What is your role? So you are farmers who care about food, people, and environment. But I think the most important thing is connect that your identity to the mission of the union. I read in your mission statement something saying more or less that you are a growing organization made up of farmers, just like anybody else, who stand together for farm policy that supports farmers. Farmers cultivating a diversity of commodities and farm products. That's who you are. So you see, you have to, I was reviewing and knowing a little bit more about the union, the NFU, and I see that you have all those ingredients that you have everything to start that organizing campaign, and maybe you are doing it right now. But I was glad to see that you have a mission, that you have objectives, that from there you are going to be able to frame the message that we are going to wanted to pass to future members. So another part that is important is to know the demographics. Who is listening in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, education, so we can relate to them. You can relate. Your mission statement states that you are farmers from small and medium-sized farms, women and young farmers who always have seats at the table. Proud of being the accredited farm organization in Ontario that truly represents who's farming today and who will farming tomorrow. So my advice here is to ensure that diversity of membership is reflected in everything, not only in the mission, but also in the structure of the union and in the activities and the events that you plan when you are going to be organizing. And the other key part is to know the issues. We will expand that later in the workshop, but basically we want to talk about identifying what the individual concerns are and then link it to the overall purpose of the union. Next slide, please.
Yes, and then you can see your next step is really defining the type of action you can take, the collective part of the definition of organizing. As Nohora started talking about all of the goals that you want to achieve around protecting small farms, global food security, and the climate. And when you're starting to speak with people, really what you're wanting to do is to motivate hope in them, to motivate that it is possible to achieve the things that they hope for, that through democratic action, truly anything is possible. And also to always go back to the democratic aspect of the union itself, of the National Farmers Union, that you really are truly only as strong as its members. And you really are truly only as strong as your members' participation. This is something we encounter in workplace organizing, is that we could get a list of 100 names and numbers and talk to everyone and everybody be very supportive. But unless they're willing to take the next step, in the case of workplace organizing, it would be signing a union card. Perhaps in your organizing, it's something similar. The next step is to get someone to sign up for a membership. That's the action part. That's the participation part. That's so critical. Next slide.
The last part that we consider important is to the alignment of the organizational goals with individual goals. When you align the organizational and the individual goals, that helps everyone to get on the same page. So how we do that? First of all, it is important to set clear objectives. So you communicate what is important, what are your priorities. Then the goal alignment has to start from the top of your organization Okay, so there are a section in the website again that I saw about all the objectives of the union. So that would be a good point to start a conversation. If you review them and you see where are you gonna go as an organization, then when you talk to the membership, you will identify the needs of them, and you would be able to link it to what they want. Then, as I mentioned, you share with them what are the objectives, and in that way, everybody will see that they have a role to play, okay, and promotes also accountability. That's something that Kevin mentioned before. In a campaign, whether it's to organize a workplace or anything related to organizing, I think it is important that each individual sees what is the benefit for them, and from that alignment, they will be willing to help in any way they can. So another way that we try to do in organizing to help to get those individuals what they want, it is by developing strategies that involves, in your case, could be that I have seen that you have already, developing policies, creating the campaigns, and I really was looking at the so many campaigns that you actually have that covers everything, you know, climate change, protecting the commons, the farmland ownership, everything. In my opinion, links to all farmers. So I think that that's very important. And there was also a report that I saw on your website regarding reframing the farm labor crisis in Ontario, which I really liked, because you incorporated everybody that plays a role in the union. You incorporated the community allies, the farmers, the governments, the people that make decisions. And I think that will resonate, that report will resonate on every single one of your members. Next slide, please. So we are going to start now that we put a framework of how we organize, what that means. So we are going to talk now about the strategies to how to create a stronger connections. So the first thing that we need to, that we want to actually stress is that listening. Listening is the most important thing in a campaign. One-on-one communication is the most powerful way to create stronger communications. Even now with COVID, that we don't have the opportunity to be together in a convention, for instance, or we can go and talk to people in person. Still, we have the opportunity to use technology to get to those members, even by phone, some meetings, but every opportunity that we have to connect to them, we have to actually listening to them. Maybe it's going to be the first time that they will listen what we have to do, what we want to achieve. Maybe they need to hear somebody, have somebody to hear them. So when you have that first connection with a member, try to gather the feelings, not only the words that they are saying, the message that they are expressing, but also how they deliver that message. So how you do that? I have some tips that might help you. First of all, don't ask closed-ended questions that is gonna lead to yes or no answers, because that will limit the conversation, okay? Don't assume that you know the person issues because you have heard it before, you know? try to, every time that you approach a member, like clean your mind, because you don't want to mix up conversations, you know. Don't transfer the results of previous conversations with other people to the one that you are having. Take notes, and don't ask for the issues that you think they are important for that person. Just listen to them. Listen to them, and based on what they tell you, then you are ask questions. Don't assume anything. If you don't know, if you have a doubts about what they are trying to communicate, ask more questions. And once you determine what are the issues, try to connect those issues with what the union, you together, can achieve, how the union can help them to achieve those issues, resolve those issues. Next slide, please.
Yes, and as Nora was mentioning there about listening, really, when you're listening to somebody that you're hoping will become a member of the National Farmers Union or participate in one of your campaigns, you're listening for those key things where you can make that connection, you can make that relationship and start building it. And this strategy that we call story of self, it's something that has existed for probably hundreds or thousands of years, but it was kind of formalized during Obama's first election, when he was able to pull the vote in his campaign in an incredible way, using hundreds of thousands of volunteers. And what they came up with is a strategy that we've also adopted in a lot of union organizing, is having a clear story about yourself. What makes you passionate about farming? What makes you passionate about food security or the climate, or just being a member of the National Farmers Union? And you want to have that story in a way that you practice, and that you're able to tell anybody in less than 3 minutes. And it's quite a fascinating exercise, I find, because actually for a lot of us, we may have never in our life been asked to tell our story of ourselves, you know, to tell what is an example from our life that inspired us to act. So that's what the story of self is, and we'll expand a little bit on it, I think, later on in the workshop. But what this strategy does is it talks about the story of self, which is yourself, the story of us, which is the National Farmers Union, the story of them, who are, for lack of better terms, the enemies, you know, corporations and governments that continue the destructive path we're trying to stop. And then the story of now is what is that action piece that you are taking, that the National Farmers Union is taking. And as Nora mentioned, I am amazed as well how many different campaigns you have going on. So I imagine in the different types of organizing you might be doing to recruit new members, you'll be, depending on your region or depending on your interests, you will be accessing particular campaigns to draw that attention to the person that you're trying to sign up. So as it says here, really it's to motivate others to join you, to join us in our collective action to achieve those common goals. And that's a little introduction to the story itself. Next slide, please.
We call this section Plant the Seed. So too many people making a connection with any individual means just to just wait to see what that person has to share, right? But in organizing, what is important is to be prepared to have that conversation. It is important to arm ourselves of all the knowledge that we can, so we are prepared to answer any questions or even deal with objections that we may encounter. So the first thing that we need to do, besides listening, is to be willing to share the information. Provide factual information about the projects, the policies, the campaigns. So when you are talking, the future members, so maybe members that have not been engaged so far, can see the passion. When you know about something, you identify yourself as Kevin mentioned it, your story, to what you are fighting for. And then you will have to be prepared to answer any questions or objections that may come there. So let's say you call, you try to reach out to a person and you actually find a rejection. So don't be discouraged. Rejection not necessarily means that that is the end of the conversation. Never run away or dismiss someone because you don't share the same opinion. Even when you hear a member and you don't agree, or maybe they are not willing to participate, ask questions why. And those answers will help you to maybe see what needs to be fixed, or maybe what is the main concern of the membership that might not be addressed right now. Based on everything that you have been able to share, maybe there is something that is missing that we have missed so far. So those are the opportunities to review what, the work that you are doing, and then make those little changes. Ask questions, always ask questions about if they are happy, if they are not happy, so you learn and then go back and try to develop new strategies based on that. Leave open opportunities for future re-engagement. Okay, so in our phone calls when we are in a campaign, besides getting to know the member, sharing what we do, we also look always for potential leaders, people that are willing to help us in getting the goal that we want to achieve. So share with them, ask them if they would like to be involved, if there is something that that caught their eye and they want to know more, and then that would be a good opportunity to you to talk after that. You might be a hero during a time of need. Talk about how NFU support every farm workers, motivate people to take action, let them know that you can't do it alone, that all of those projects that you have needs the participation of everybody, and talk about what you can obtain together. You know, if it is a vote, if it is a campaign, if it is to attend conventions, if it is on maybe just calling other farm workers, you know, like, okay, maybe you don't have time at this moment, but maybe do you know somebody else that are willing to participate? Just try to get them to realize that every little single participation, it is important. But at the end of the day, it is the way you present the union that will get them to get involved, get curious about what they can do. Next slide, please.
Yes, like Nohora was saying, it fundamentally really it's about building a bond of trust with somebody you've never met before. So I know for some of you it might feel quite daunting. You know, when I was a kid, when I was growing up, I was a very shy person, and when I first started organizing, when I was a teenager, for different causes, I was terrified. But what I found is that just in general, people really just generally, people want to talk, people want to socialize, people want to be heard, people want to have their voice heard and be respected. And so, like Nohora was saying, just keep asking questions. It's unbelievable. Even if we can't agree in the first conversation or the first approach, just keeping it going and building that memory in their mind that there's somebody they can trust, that they could go back to and talk to. So just a few small other pragmatic kind of things about your approach when you're talking to farmers who potentially will become members. Just to always be friendly and positive as much as you can. Avoid arguments. Going down the road of debating is never going to end well. So it's best to just stick to the facts, the facts about your experience with the farmers union, and as always, if you don't know the answer to something, say I don't know the answer, but I will find you an answer and I'm going to get back to you with it. And then that actually opens up another opportunity to talk to them again. So yeah, be factual, be correct. Obviously, do not lie. I cannot stress this enough. I cannot stress this enough. As an organizer, my whole life, I've never seen myself as a salesperson. I would consider it an extreme insult for anybody to call me a salesperson. So every time the employers put out their anti-union literature and call Nohora and me salespeople, I'm truly offended, but I know that's their game. But at the end of the day, you are not a salesperson. You are an organizer. You're an advocate. You're a farmer. You're an activist, and you're doing this because you believe in it fundamentally. Avoid the know-it-all attitude. I find a lot of times, like Nohora was saying, sometimes the very best conversations are the ones where most of the time I was listening. And just here and there, I just, dropped in a few helpful facts that might help motivate that person to act. And so creating stronger connections, and just being yourself. I cannot emphasize that enough either. Being genuine is probably one of the most important things as an organizer, because people can see that, right? And no matter who you meet, no matter what walk of life, they can see immediately whether you're genuine, whether you're trustworthy. So just speak about what you believe in and be proud of who you are, and be proud of the NFU. Next slide, please.
Yeah, culture. I think this is an important factor to consider when we approach anybody really nowadays. With approximately 190 countries that I think are around the world, there are 7 million people on Earth. It is not hard to imagine that there is many different cultures, and in Canada is an example of it. Okay, so a lot of problems can arise from misunderstanding, especially when we talk about different cultures. So I encourage you to try to be cultural aware when you contact potential members. I know that for some people it might be difficult. I am an immigrant. Maybe my English is not 100% the way it should be. Maybe I have limitations with the language, and for some people might not be understand that I don't have the same background, the same culture, and that might be a huge barrier when we try to connect to people. So be self-aware of what is our culture, and be aware that there are people different to us will prevent us to make mistakes and protect the values of not only our values, but the values of other people, other cultures. If the person that we are talking sees that, I think that will help us to communicate more effectively, because there is when a person sees a genuine effort to understand and different points of view based on culture, people are open to listen. So by learning about people of different cultural backgrounds, we can increase our horizons. We have better interpersonal connections and communicate more on a personal level. If we put aside any biases, we might have an open opportunity and sincere opportunity to communicate what we want to do. So here are some few examples of what we can do. For instance, we have to recognize the shifts and meal times, respect that. I encourage you to never contact anybody after 9 o'clock at night. At the end of the day, everybody's tired. Everybody is trying to have some quality time with family. So unless you have arranged previously to make that phone call, I would encourage you not to do so. If you contact somebody that is 100% committed, don't spend much time with them. Just try to get him involved in any of the projects in any way to the union, and then go to the next person, because that person is 100% with us. Recognize personal and cultural events. And when we approach a unit, when we want to organize, what we do, we call mapping of the unit. So what it means is that we take a moment before reaching out to members, try to understand the demographics. So we trying to get a picture of the backgrounds, the ethnicity, gender. We try to identify the languages that they speak, so we can match as much as possible the organizers with the targets that we wanna get in a specific workplace. And be always inclusive. Always respect the differences between of opinions, and that will enrich the union, and that different points of view based on different cultures will help us at the end to align everything that we do. Next slide, please.
So the last part of our workshop is just to briefly look at some of the challenges you might face, and then we want to open it to broader discussion. Now, these are three of the main challenges or barriers that we often face as organizers. It's not exhaustive. You may indeed find different challenges that might be brand new that Nora and I would love to actually hear about in the future. But the three kind of main categories we face is, first of all, the fear of change. Fear is when we're union organizing, fear is the #1 factor of why somebody does not want to get involved. And in a workplace setting, of course, the most kind of immediate pragmatic fear is the loss of their job, that this might result in them losing their income. And so that is something that Nora and I have to work very hard to make sure that there's mechanisms in place to protect those rights so that people don't lose their jobs. But also there's very much a psychological element that I think all of us share in varying degrees, is that fear of change, just that fear of change in general, that something in my life right now is going to get worse, or I'm going to lose something. So I'm hoping that with the National Farmers Union, it's not so much when you're asking a member to sign up and to get involved and participate. It may not be so much a direct fear of losing something, but perhaps a fear that something might happen to them or their farm or their business by sticking their neck out in fighting for the common good on behalf of all farmers. So that is definitely, I imagine, one of the biggest things you're going to want to formulate some strategies or some talking points about. I'm guessing that with the National Farmers Union, you can get involved to many varying degrees. So when somebody says, yes, I want to support it, I want to sign up, but I want to stay quiet, that may be very different than somebody who says, I want to sign up and yes, I want to immediately participate in campaigns. So the second category sometimes we see is apathy. Just not caring, or just the perception that the person doesn't care, the perception that they just don't want to participate. I don't have time. I have too many things going on in my life. I have too many stresses already. I don't want to do this. And in many ways, I think apathy can be translated into lack of hope. You know, sometimes when we are overwhelmed with everything, especially after, you know, we saw the things that we're facing in that movie we saw this morning, that the lack of hope can definitely drive us to believe that collective action is not going to work. And so as an organizer, that is something you're going to want to find perhaps in your story of self. Some kind of experience in your life where you beat the odds, where people said it couldn't be done and you did it anyways, and you proved them wrong. And that kind of example can go a long way to helping plant that seed in that person you're speaking to, that yes, there is hope. We can do something together, but we can't do anything by ourselves. We have to be together to make it happen. And then of course, ideology. We encounter, you know, some people just generally think more from an individualistic perspective than others. So we'll often, in union organizing, we'll often find kind of the worker who's not only full of apathy, but also full of just a belief that if I want to change things, I can make it happen by myself. If I can't make it happen by myself, then it's never going to happen. Trying to transfer that kind of belief into, actually, these are all the things we can achieve together collectively. That this is already what the National Farmers Union over the years has achieved. You know, the fact that communities, entire sectors wouldn't be aware of these issues that we're talking about every day as farmers if we didn't put these campaigns together. And then that goes back to the fact that the organization is only as powerful as the members. You know, that brings your conversation back to, now I really need your support. We can't continue to make this happen. We certainly can't expand our activities to confront the new challenges unless I have you sign up as a member. I need your support. I need you and your family. And I just thought of that as well just now, that very often organizing will involve the whole family. And that's a beautiful thing, actually. When that happens, I'm so grateful, because when we're able to involve, in our case, a worker's family in the decision to get involved, I think family is probably even more important for all of you, because definitely in the case of farms, that it will be the family itself who's working on the farm, who's owning it, who's making this decision together. So just stressing the importance of trying to get family involved whenever it's a positive. So that's the three areas we kind of boiled down to as far as challenges. And so the next slide is actually the end. The next slide is the discussion where all of you come in. So like I said, we're looking forward to comments, questions. We love it all. So I'm going to open the floor now.